To go and achieve something like Everest, is that still on the bucket list?
Oh, 100%. That's like always been like my North Star. Like to climb Mount Everest without oxygen is like one of the hardest things you can practically do, especially like Mount Everest isn't like a super technical or hard mountain really, but it's so big and there's so much volume of the mountain. But when you tie that with not doing it with oxygen, like it's just like a whole nother beast. Like more people been to space, more people have won Golden Globe than they have been to the top of Mount Everest without oxygen. Like that's how hard it is, and it's just like you have to be insanely fit and insanely mentally fit to be able to do something like that. Like some of these stories I hear of these dudes back in the 80s with none of this new equipment and shit, and just climbing on like pure grit and just like being a second away from death every single second of like some people take like 48 hours to climb it from Camp 4. Like it's just ridiculous. They're up there overnight, like literally on death's door, because they reckon it's like sprinting with a pillow over your face, like just breathing up there and walking. Like that's how fucking hard it is.
G'day, welcome back to another episode of A Lot to Talk About. Recording a double today, and I feel blessed to be here. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to say that if you're listening to this or you're watching this, please give the show some love, whatever potty platform you are consuming this on. Give us a little subscription, give us that 5-star rating, share it around amongst your friends and family. It means the world to me that people get behind this, and we're in the top 5% on Wrapped in 2022. Want to get to the top 1% this year, so that's the goal, and you guys are going to help me get there. Really excited for today's guest. I've known this guy for a little while. I'd consider him a mate. We had plenty of conversations, and over the course of recent months, the training block that this man's been on with his ultra marathon journey, the races, the celebrations for the achievements he's achieved along the way have been so profound, and I thought I've got to have him on to have a chat about this stuff. And I was hoping to, as we were chatting, bump into each other and get a 10K out over the course of this journey, but I just felt like with the year starting and the work year ready to begin, I wanted to catch it before he got back into the full swing of work. So we messaged and made this happen on short notice. So the man sitting in front of me is a friend of mine. He's an ultra marathon specialist now, coming fresh off the Coast To Kosci, so running from Eden to the top of Mount Kosciusko. Ladies and gentlemen, from your home, your car, or wherever you are, give a very warm welcome to the one, the only, Zac O'Neil. How are you, brother?
Thanks for having me.
Bro, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And it's a pleasure to sit here and talk about something that I now love too.
Yeah.
Running. I don't know that I'd love running as far as you do.
Yeah, you probably would have been like holding it back with guests, like to talk about, let's talk about running, or let's talk about
you want to dive into it, right?
Yeah, and they don't really give a fuck about running because most people don't, but now they're starting to.
They are. Now. I actually spoke to a mutual friend of ours, Emily, this morning, and Em was saying, Em Taylor, that is, and I said to her this morning, I said, I got Zachy coming on the show, and she goes, you will have no problems getting some run chat out of him. He would be loving the opportunity to chew someone's ears off about running. So
yeah, I lived with her at NZ, and like that's what I always talk about was like running and snowboarding, and she probably just got so sick of it. So yeah, she definitely won't listen to this episode.
Bro, I'm happy to hear everything you have to say about running. I just mentioned there, Coast To Kosci, and for some people they're probably trying to figure out in their head and map that out what sort of distance we're talking. We're talking, is it 238 or 240 kilometres?
There's like, some people get 240 Ks on their watch, some people get 246, so it's like, I usually just pick somewhere in between and say like 242 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or go to the high end, 246, I'm like, yeah.
Well, whether it's 240 or 246, bloody hell, it's an achievement and a half, and I don't think many people would even consider running 24 Ks in their life, let alone 240 Ks. But obviously it's not the journey of just deciding you love running and then going to take on an event like this. It's an event that requires qualification. It's an event that requires years of training and building and, going through blocks and other races to gain the experience to even consider taking on a challenge like this. Give us an idea of where the run journey started and sort of give us an idea of who you are as a human being too.
Well, I started running probably like 4.5, 5 years ago or so. Can't remember what year it was, but I just started running to get fit, and I was really obsessed with like mountaineering at one stage, and I still am now, but it's taken a bit of a backseat like from the running. But yeah, I was like obsessed with climbing Mount Everest and like high altitude mountaineering. And the only way to train for that in Wollongong is going up Sublime with a pack and running. So they're the like two best things you can do to train for mountains that we don't even have in Australia. So I was like starting to think, what's the best way to train? So I would start running. And then I was in my first relationship at the time, and she'd gone on like some big trip to Central America. And this was like, I was like 21-year-old kid, just partying a lot and surfing and like just reading lots of mountaineering books. Like that's what I was practically doing all the time. It was mostly partying. And yeah, she went to Central America with her best friend. That's probably too much information, but so I was running a bit, trying to lose a bit of weight to surprise her when she got back.
Yeah.
And then we ended up breaking up while she was over there, and I was just like super heartbroken, Like I was just like, my first relationship, first girlfriend, I was just like so heartbroken.
Yeah.
So I just was like,
naturally.
I just stopped eating, like, and like me and you, like we love to eat.
Love to eat.
And which is weird for me to not eat. That's when there's something wrong, when I'm not eating. And I was just like losing heaps of weight and going on like heaps long walks just to clear my head and stuff like that. And then like I just noticed in the mirror I was starting to get skinnier, obviously because I wasn't eating, or like I was exercising a lot. Well, it wasn't really exercise, it was just like long walks. And then I started to like the way I looked in the mirror, and then I'm like if I go for like a 2-hour walk, I'm going to burn this amount of calories, or I could just go for a half an hour run, like down to the bridge and back.
Yeah.
So then I'd done that, and like it was only like 3Ks down to the bridge and 3Ks back. And I'd run the 3K down to the bridge, and I actually had a look the other day and checked, but behind this pole I used to scratch a mark in the concrete.
Yeah, okay.
Just to see like how many days I could run in a row. And then it like started to fill up like heaps. And yeah, actually I ended up stopped doing it when I got Strava and stuff like that. But I looked the other day and it's still there, which is pretty funny.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then I would run 3Ks down to the bridge, I had my iPod, I always like time it on my iPod.
Yeah.
And then have a breather and then run back. So it's like I didn't start out running like crazy amounts of distances like straight away. It was just like 3Ks and then 3K back. So it's just like 6K runs. And then Mum's like, oh, we should do this little race that's in Kiama. Like the Red Cross put it on. It's like this like local event. And she done the 5K, I done the 9K, which is like such a weird fucking distance. And then, yeah, I was just like, I just really enjoyed it. I come like 10th or something. And
How old are you at this point?
I would have been 22 at this stage.
So this is still very early in the piece.
Yeah, it was like probably on my 22nd birthday was around when all this stuff happened.
Yeah.
It was actually on my birthday that we broke up, so yeah, I was just freshly 22, just like really lost and just like I don't have anything. Like I put all this effort into one person and now I've just like got nothing. And I'm just like, I need something. And then luckily I just found running and then done a little 6K race, little 9K race, and then loved it. And I was like, oh, we should do City to Surf. So then done City to Surf and like just fell in love with the whole process of running. Like it's just all time based. It's just you versus you, and you can just see the progress every single day that you keep putting in the effort. Like it's the best way to like show how much effort you're putting in, because you're getting faster, it's getting easier. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know, it just shows like it's just hard work just gets shown really well in running. That's what I love about it, and that's what I fell in love with at that time, and then just spiraled from there, like half marathon, and then I would really wanted to go under 1:30 in the half marathon, so I was just like obsessed with that. And I was snowboarding a lot as well, like down the snow with my mates, and like that's when I actually discovered the Coast To Kosci, because I was somehow heard about it, and we would always drive like some of the route, and I was like, there's people that run from Eden all the way to the top of Mount Kosciusko. My mates are like, no way, that's not real. I'm like, it is. And ever since then, like the seed was just planted in my head. I was just like, I don't even think I said I was going to do it back then, but just that race is just like crazy to even think about it.
For sure.
Yeah. So then it's just like half marathon. But like Coast To Kosci was probably like pushed really far back in my head. It's always like the next goal after that, like half marathon, 100K, another 100K, miler. Like it's just like I've just like constantly gone for the next thing every time, which I probably, a lot of people say when you're young you should just cruise and just try and get faster at the lower distances and not move up. That's why most people that do these races are in their like early 40s, late 30s. So yeah, they say you should just chill, but I just like up the ante every time because I was just obsessed with like that feeling of like the next thing. But I probably should have like just kept doing half marathons for a bit, got a bit faster, but I was just obsessed with like just upping the ante every time, just like going crazy.
Well, there's something about that challenge that becomes infectious, right? And I can probably relate to that in some way, and I think that's why I had to do the 50 this year.
Yeah.
There was part of me that felt like, it's almost part of me that got a little bit uncomfortable with the idea that Melbourne Marathon was a success for me. Like,
yeah,
when I crossed the finish line, I actually ticked off a goal and felt like I was in control of that run. Like, I had a plan, everything went to plan. I didn't have any mental challenges.
Went too smooth.
I didn't find a point. I was like, that was too smooth.
Yeah.
I need to feel pain and like get honest again.
Yeah.
Like to realise that I'm back at the bottom of the mountain and there's some work to be done. And
yeah,
I think there's some people who are tapped into that. And then there's people that I speak to, and you'd have these conversations all the time, who are so unaware sometimes of what they're actually capable of because they're stuck in a comfort zone on a certain distance.
100%.
That I speak to people who will say, God, I don't know how you run 10K. And I'm like, oh, do you run at the moment? And they're like, oh, yeah, I've been running 5K every day for the last year. And I'm like, I guarantee you could run 10K.
Definitely.
If you just slowly drop your pace a little bit from that 5K that you run every day, you'd run 10K tomorrow.
And if I put a gun to your head, you could run 100Ks right now.
100%.
Really want to. Like, your brain's just holding you back. Like, I don't know what it is with some people, but they're just like, it's like their brain is just like a jail cell. Like, there's so much you can do. There's so much untapped potential in there that you just got to turn the switch off and you can do like whatever you want. Like, people just need to understand that. I wish I could just like scream it from the fucking top of the mountains. Like, you can literally do whatever you fucking want. Just do it. Like,
well, that's the thing, brother, and that's probably the thing that interests me most about Ultra. And it's a community and a space I've only just started to, I've watched a bunch of stuff in the space. It's a space that I've only just started to physically learn what that feels like and mentally understand it of my recent 50. But that is the surface of Ultra.
yeah.
You've gone far further than I have. But I was thinking about this morning and I was chatting to a mate about it. I was saying I'd love to see links in like neuroscience studies between the way that the mental fitness connects with the physical fitness depending on the perception of size of the challenge. And what I mean by that is, like, there's days where I'll go out for a 10K run and at 5Ks you're like, oh God, I'm hurting. I've got 5 to go. But at 5Ks in a marathon, you're never going to say I'm hurting.
Yeah, no.
Because you're only a small way through the perception of the challenge that you've got to conquer. And I think depending on the size of the challenge in front of you is how your brain processes it and feels about it. And it seems as though the bigger the challenge you put in front of you, you can muster up enough mental strength to get to a certain point, and then from there it's all dog.
Yeah.
It's all getting yourself through it.
100%. Like, in Coast To Kosci, like, there's been times in my first 100K where I would get to 60K, I'm like, alright, I've got 40 more Ks to go. Like, this is going to be fucking hard. But when I was 60Ks into 240Ks, like, I'm not thinking about that 40. I'm not thinking about the next 40. Like, it's just like, the bigger the challenge, like, you forget about like your limitations that you set in the past. Like, it's just like, this is what you got to do, and like how am I going to finish it? Like, you're not gonna. It's just constantly like getting elevated each time. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, it's.
Well, it's funny you say that because Soph and I were watching your YouTube video on Coast To Kosci, and you get to 56Ks to, I think it was like the first checkpoint, or one of the checkpoints, and you were like, I'm feeling pretty chill at this point. I'm only 56Ks in.
Yeah.
And we both sort of had a giggle, and it's like that concept.
Whoever I've watched that video with, like, they're all like, oh yeah, only 56K. But like, if I looked at it like, oh, I'm 56Ks in, this is a long way. Like, there's no fucking way I'd be able to get 240.
For sure.
Like, you just gotta, your brain just like forgets about the limitations you've had in the past, and you just gotta like focus on like that race, because it's all relative, but like 56Ks for me doesn't mean that someone that runs 56Ks isn't impressive, because that's just like someone running 56Ks is probably going to have just as much effort and struggle that I did doing 240. It's just like, that's just where I'm at the moment. And there's people out there that are like so much more advanced than me that can run across America or whatever, and like doing 240Ks probably isn't that much to them. So
For
it's
sure.
like, it's all relative to just like where you're at that time. That's what's good about running, because it's just all relative to like you and your brain.
Definitely. I love that. And it's that solo pursuit. When you talk about, I guess, getting comfortable with mental adversity there and like the growth of your mental fortitude, is that something that you feel like has come through that growth through running itself, or have you looked outside of running and sought after literature, podcasts, you know?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Like when I first started running, I was pretty like insecure. Like I've been insecure since I was a little kid. Like I was always a chubby little kid. Never like taking my shirt off. Was always like a bit socially like not awkward, but just like not very secure. So running's definitely transformed that for me, because I just realized, like, even when I first done them 6Ks, I'm like, 6Ks is like, felt like a long way. Like mum and dad, oh, that's really good. That's a long way. And then I'm like, yeah, it is a long way. And then like, it just keeps like, I remember there was a time when I was doing City to Surf. I didn't know anyone that was into this stuff. So like, City to Surf felt like a big thing for me. I was like, fuck yeah, I've not ran 14Ks. Like, this is good. And then like, you just slowly, podcasts and stuff do help, and like books like David Goggins' book and stuff like that, Cameron Haynes, and listening to podcasts, Rich Roll's podcast as well has helped me. But yeah, I've definitely, like, running has 100% like transformed the way I think about life, and it's like transformed into other aspects of my life as well, like with work and like going to the gym and like just like keeping my room clean and shit like that, like weird stuff like that. Like, it's just like, I want to be perfect at every single thing in my life, and that started from running, because with running, it's a pretty simple thing, but if you don't do the 1%ers right and don't do the simple things right, then you're going to struggle to like get anywhere in running. So it's just transformed me into, just trying to do everything perfect and have everything go the way I want it to go.
Yeah, the pursuit of personal excellence, which is like, and personal development and growth, which is a rewarding journey, whether it be as a runner, in your personal life, in your relationships, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it just goes into all aspects of your life.
Definitely.
Yeah, even like the little stuff in work, like I want to do like everything, little perfect things right, and it's just like, now I've just got the mindset where like, if I can run 240Ks, like I can literally do anything I want to do. Like, if I wanted to go and be a doctor or something, I feel like I could literally go and just work hard and become a doctor, which I've never like thought that before. I was even talking to someone the other day at a festival, and she's like, oh, I wish I was musically talented. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, just work hard. Like, if you want to be a pianist, like, just buy a piano and just get a coach and just work hard at it. Like,
and learn,
talent is not, like, hard work makes talent all the time. Like, don't say that don't pigeonhole yourself and say, oh, I'm not musically talented, or I'm too big to run, or like, I don't have the frame for a runner, or I'm not smart enough to be a doctor. So I'm like, you can literally go and do it. Just work hard and you're going to get there. Like, you need to like just have a bit of faith in yourself. And I never had this when I was like, before I was running, but now I've just like done all this stuff, and I just realized that like, you can literally fucking do whatever you want. Like,
bro, it's so true. And it's funny because you just mentioned a guy there who I've quoted a lot on this podcast, Rich Roll. And there's a famous tweet from Rich that I've mentioned a bunch of times on the pod, and Tim Ferriss read it out on one of their podcasts together, and it was, at 42, at 42, I reached my athletic peak. At 44, I started my podcast. At 45, I wrote my first book.
yeah,
At 30, I thought my life was over. At 52, I realised it's just begun. And it's that concept for me that is so powerful and so enriching, because we hear, and you know, in Australia, we love a bit of, we love to take the piss out of ourselves, right? So we hear people say all the time, oh, you know, bloody 30 or downhill from here.
yeah.
You know,
I hate that.
You know,
well.
bloody 50. Oh, I can't do that sort of stuff anymore. I'm not a young fella anymore.
Yeah.
Well, of course you can't do that, because you're telling yourself that. You know, it's that old saying that the man who says he can and the man who says he can't are both right.
Yeah.
And the minute you start to, whilst it might feel harmless because you're taking the piss out of yourself, you start to say that enough, that language has an effect on the way you think and the way you feel.
100%.
And that for me, as someone who hated running and couldn't grasp the concept of why someone would want to run 5K, as soon as I changed the narrative in my head and I was doing it for a reason outside of just running 5K for the sake of it, like there was a purpose behind the pursuit, my progress was just like, it was not linear. It was crazy. It was out of this world for me.
Yeah.
And it's changing that perspective and the way you see what is possible for you in life. And I think running for a lot of people in the last 2 years, as we spoke about before we hit record here, through COVID has become a pursuit of their personal excellence.
Yeah.
A way to level up, even if it's not from a competitive running space, just to level up personally in their own lives, the mental clarity you get from it, the ability to go out and clear your head. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's so simple.
Yeah, it's very simple, and it's like, it can be expensive if you want it to be expensive, but it also can be very cheap. Like, you just get a pair of shoes and just go for a run. You don't need Strava, you don't need headphones. You can just go for a run and you'll feel so much better for it. But yeah, I like that quote from Rich. Rich is probably, I read his book when I first started to get into this stuff as well, and that, like,
Finding Ultra.
Yeah, Finding Ultra. It was just like, it's crazy to think, like, he was like in his 40s, overweight, alcoholic, and then all of a sudden, like, he's just had this crazy rebirth and he's just changed his life completely. And he was at that age, and I always hate when people say, oh, like, 30's coming on. Like, who cares? Everyone else is getting old just as quick as you are. Like, just start living your life now. Like, the best time to plant a seed is, like, right now compared to, like, 5 years ago, whatever the saying is. But yeah, you can literally, like, you don't have to just start when you're 32. It's better than starting when you're 42. Like, just start now.
I couldn't agree more. And, for me, I think you look at I think there's a lot of hope in the ultra running community because, like you said before, a lot of the people who succeed at the highest levels of ultra running are in their 40s. And which says it's not exactly a young man's game. It's a young man's time to grind in the sport. It's a young man's time to gain experience.
Yeah.
But you can continue to level up as you age, and that excites you because the future looks bright and it looks long.
I don't know if ultra running's for old people, because not old people, but like older people compared to us. I just feel like most people our age is too lazy to do something like that. Where there's all these ultra runners doing crazy stuff in their 40s, but there's people, like, there's genetic outliers that are our age out there that don't know their potential because they haven't got into running. They'd probably be breaking world records if they wanted to. But because it's something that people find later in life, for whatever reason it is, I don't know why, but if there was people our age doing it more, I think the sport would just get elevated, like, even more than it already is. Yeah. And I think it's starting to now. Like, I get heaps of messages from people, like, getting into ultras and stuff now. Like, when I started doing ultras, I literally didn't know anyone that done it. Like, and now I don't know if it's because I'm in the community now and I'm meeting more people or what, but yeah, when I first started doing it, there was no one doing it, and now there seems to be, like, a massive uptick in people running. So yeah, the sport's just going, like, up and up. It's sick to see. Like, it's going to be interesting over the next couple of years.
It is cool to see, isn't it? Talk to me about, obviously, like I mentioned before, this isn't the sort of race that you just go online and buy a ticket to, you got to qualify for this sort of thing. It's obviously dangerous to go and run for that long. It took you, is it 37, 27?
27, yeah.
27.
It's a bit weird that it all, like, worked out like that.
Plenty of sevens.
But yeah, so to get into this race, you have to have done 100k and 100 miles. So 100 miles is 161k.
Was there specific times you had to complete those races in?
Not really. It's up to the discretion of the race organisers, but they kind of want you to do, like, races that are a bit harder, because they're all about that. They're trying to protect their finishing rate because they want everyone to finish, because they're just, like, they're the best people. They're just the biggest legends, and they want everyone to finish. Like, they don't want anyone to DNF. Yeah. Partly, I think a little bit of it's because you get an Akuba when you finish, and they have to pay for that Akuba, like, before the race starts. So yeah. I think they kind of don't want you to lose their money in that way. But
by the way, that's sick, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so best. What a trophy.
Yeah, it's so sick. It looks a bit weird on my head, but it's fucking so sick.
Bro, it suits you with the long hair. I've seen the photo. It looks sick.
It's just a bit, like, it's a bit small, but I measured my head wrong. I measured it, like, too low or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, they, like, really protective of their finishing rate, so they want you to do, like, like harder races.
Yep.
And originally I was trying to do this race 2 years ago when COVID happened, but which is lucky I didn't, because I would have been 2 years into running. It was probably not a good idea to do something like that. So I originally wanted to do the UTA 100 as my 100k, and then the weather changed the plans for that. They got cancelled over because of the rain. So then I changed and went out and done the West Max Monster in Alice Springs.
Yeah, wow.
It's 128k. So that was going to be my 100k qualifier. So 128 is obviously better than 100 on paper for the organisers. And it was just so sick out there. Like, that place is just insane. Like, Alice Springs and, like, the Red Centre. And, like, we went out to Uluru and stuff. You can see why the Indigenous people have, like, that connection out there. Because it's just, like, it's fucking mesmerising out there.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I ran along
I want to go out there so bad.
Yeah, definitely do it. It's a little bit expensive, but, like, it's so worth it. We ran from along the Larapinta Trail. And,
okay.
like, there's nothing, like, there's literally nothing out there. So you just, like, running along this trail, and there's, like, some through hikers and stuff like that, but it's just you and the desert, and, like, it feels like you can see all the way to Uluru, but Uluru's ages away. It's just like you're on this mountain range in the middle of the desert. It just feels like you're just out of yeah. Have you read the book Tracks before?
No, I haven't.
Robin Davidson. So this chick walked in the 70s from Alice Springs all the way to Shark Bay in Western Australia.
Yeah, wow.
With 3 camels, and she's like it was just the most insane story. And I was reading that at the time, and it was just like I could just picture her walking through there with like 3 camels, and the place is just like amazing. So if you ever get the chance to go out there, definitely go out there. It's so special. So then I done that race. I had an alright race, but I wasn't super happy with it because I wanted to win that race. I come second, but the guy that beat me was just like a bit of a gun, so it was kind of hard to.
What was your time for that?
20 hours.
And how much elevation?
I don't even remember how much elevation. There's a fair bit of elevation, but it's just like the elevation. It's just like rock, like you like rock climbing practically. Like there's a video on my YouTube. I just filmed on my GoPro on my phone and stuff, and just put it all together into a clip, and it kind of shows what it's like. But there's like picture like a water rapids, like White River Rapids. Like picture that but dry, and that's what like the tracks like. A lot of it's like that. So it's like really slow going, and my quads just like got super beat up, and my feet were just fucked, and it was like I pretty much had to like march the last like little bit in. So I wasn't like super happy with that, but I still was like still all right. And yeah, the guy that beat me was just a weapon. But once I finished, I was just like super happy to have experienced that out there because it was super special. So that was my 100k qualifier, and then I tried to get into Coast To Kosci last year, but COVID brought everything forward. So I was planning on doing a 100-mile race in the August of last year to qualify for Coast To Kosci, which is in the December, but it got postponed because of COVID lockdown to like the end of October, start of November. So it would have been too close for me to. I could have went and done 100 miles. I was planning to do 100 miles by myself in the streets during the lockdown, but we only have 5k radius. Yeah. So I was like, do I do 5k loops and have this as my first miler, or would I just do the miler that's in a couple of months and just do Coast To Kosci next year? So that's what I ended up doing. Because it would have been a bit shit doing fucking 5k loops around.
Not the same experience, is it?
Yeah, no, it would have been pretty shit. Cool story, but it would have been shit. So, yeah, done the mile at the end of October, start of November last year, and that was my A qualifier for this race. So that was the GNW up in Gosford. It's like starts at Patonga Beach and then goes up. It used to start in Newcastle and then finish at Patonga Beach along the Great North Walk, the GNW walk, but it's just like a logistical nightmare. So they scrapped it because the council was just being pricks to them or something apparently.
Yep.
And then they've just made it like loops through the bush, and it's just like so overgrown, and it was just like almost like an orienteering, like there's no course markings, and it was just like an orienteering mission practically, and it was fucking so hard. It was such a mission.
You won that race though, didn't you?
Yeah, come first. The field wasn't like super deep, but it's just like a local community race type thing. It's like the race was kind of held in like, it was a pretty big race in Australia when the old course was on, but now I think it's like 2 years of this new course, so I don't think the fields go as deep. But I was still happy to win. I just wanted to have a good day.
Of course.
It was pissing down rain like the last, like from like maybe 120 k's to like 106 k's, was just pissing down rain, and it was like I was just getting a little bit delirious. My mate was pacing me, and it was like we like got lost a bit, and we were just like I was just like tripping. It was like I don't know what being like acid's on, but I can imagine it's probably something similar to that.
Something similar, just losing your mind.
Yeah, no like hallucinations, but like just like I couldn't tell. Like I'm really good with directions usually, but
yeah,
I was just like in this like delirious state, and I couldn't tell like directions were just like cooking me.
What about like perception of depth and stuff when you're moving through thick bush like that?
Especially in the night when you just got the head torch, like a tree looks like it's fucking all the way there, but it's actually like right in your face, and then you just like getting smacked in the face, but you don't even care at that point because your legs are like screaming at you, so you just like, and your hips are just, my hips were like so locked up, and I was just like hobbling.
It's funny because you've sort of nudged me a couple of times to give the trail stuff a go, right? Because I've never really done trail.
Yeah.
I think I've done one trail in my life, and it was loosely a trail, right? And for me, Puckies is a trail, for anyone who knows the local area.
Yeah, it's still nice.
Still nice through there, right? But I never touched trail because until like October last year, I had really bad eyesight. So I'd go for a run in the morning along the road and fucking trip over if it was dark enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
it's
like,
easy to trip over all the trails.
Bro, I've taken that much skin off my hands running on the roads just with shit eyes. But I got my eyes lasered, which has just leveled up my game. So now I'm like, maybe that's the next step because I'm loving running on the road at the minute. But you kind of want to like foolproof your love for something that you hold close, right?
Going on trails is just like, you just feel like, sounds cliche, but you're like so connected to like the bush, and especially when you're running by yourself. Like we're so lucky having the Royal National Park like close to us, because that place is just insane. Like you got 30 k's of like some of the nicest coastline. There's barely any like infrastructure there except for the trail you're on, and it's just like you're out in nature. Like that's the second oldest national park in the world after Yellowstone.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how old it is, and it's like it's just so pristine. And yeah, just running on trails, especially up there, it's just the best thing. Like it's almost like a different sport. It didn't even feel like you're running 30k. Like you're just like out in the
exploring.
Bush. Yeah.
Well, I love that you say that, because one of the questions I was going to ask you, with a mountaineering background and interest in that, how much does that connection to nature connect you naturally to the trails? Like, now that you're there and you're in that space, do you think that it's almost inevitable you were going to end up here at some stage?
Yeah, looking back, a lot of the mountaineers that I would follow and read their books, like they were all into running and into nature and into rock climbing and stuff like that. So it's just like to be able to move through the mountains, and it's like a playground. Like when I was living in NZ, like I was spending so much time in the mountains, just running up there and snowboarding and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, the mountains are just like, they just draw you in. Like it's the best fucking thing. And like the trails are the closest thing we can get to those mountains. Like I just come back from down the coast hiking yesterday and the day before that, and just I don't know what it is. It's just like to sit there and have like a view, and just to be able to take all that in, and just like you just feel like you're a part of like the earth, like because we are just animals at the end of the day. So
100%.
Yeah, and running on trails, like a bit of exercise, you're getting the endorphins from like the exercise, and like you're out in nature in the green. Like they call it the green doctor for a reason. So the blue doctor, the ocean; green doctor, the forest; and then the orange doctor, the sunrise. It's like if you get all three of those things in one day, like you're laughing.
It's funny because I watched your story a couple of days ago now, just before you went camping, and you put something up on your story and you said if anyone's keen to come out and camp for 2 days, this is what your view will look like. And you posted, was that a photo you'd taken?
Yeah.
Bro, that was magic.
Yeah, that place is insane. The Butterwangs down like west of Ulladulla, and I love taking people there for the first time because, like, even I forget how amazing it is when I get out there. And when you see that for the first time, it's just like, when I see people's faces, it's just like the best feeling. Like,
so how did you get into this? Because it seems to me that like camping, and especially camping, like rough camping like that, that's kind of something that is passed down to most people. Like they go with their old man or their family, and something you've learned as you've gone time and time again every year in your school holidays, and
Yeah.
eventually get to the age where you start to do it yourself and with your mates?
Yeah.
Or have you just picked this up?
Yeah, I've just picked it up. Like, even running and stuff. Like, my mum's a runner now, but before that, like, they were never into that stuff or never take me hiking. Like, we used to always have a caravan down the coast we'd go to. And, like, Dad had a boat. And, like, we've lived on a boat for, like, a month and stuff. Our own boat. And, like, the
Yep.
Sundays and stuff like that. But never anything, like, hiking like that. I remember I discovered the Budawangs. I was at TAFE one day in the library. It's, like, this old rundown TAFE.
Mm.
And then there was this
I'm writing
massive...
these down, by the way.
There's this massive... Yeah, I'll give you all the info.
Yeah, give it to me
And
after.
there was this massive poster on, like, this old, like, poster on the walls, like, crinkled on the edges and stuff, and it said the Budawangs. I'm like, where the fuck is that? So I looked it up, and I'm like, holy shit, this is down the coast. And then me and my mates, like, I somehow conned my mates into going down there, like, a couple of weeks later, and it was just, like, the best thing. They had the craziest weekend. Everyone was, like, we just, like, slept in this massive cave, or not massive cave, it was, like, slept in this little cave at the top of this cliff and had a fire, and just, like, they had the best weekend, had the best views, but, yeah, I don't know, I just, like, got into it. I don't even know how. I've always been obsessed with Mount Everest, but, like, I don't know if it was the challenge or, like, but ever since I was a kid, I've just always been obsessed with Mount Everest, and, like, I think I'm just constantly chasing, like, that feeling of, like, mountains and nature and stuff like that, but I think it's all stemmed from probably watching the Everest movie when I was a kid and, like, reading, like, always would ask Mum for, like, Mount Everest, like, books and stuff when I was for Christmas and shit like that. I don't even know why. I've just been obsessed with it.
Do you think, like, for you now, you've gone down this rabbit hole of running, which, whilst it's not far from mountaineering in many senses of being out in nature and being physical, it's still a very different pursuit at the peaks of, no pun intended, at the peaks of
Yeah.
what you're trying to achieve. To go and achieve something like Everest, is that still on the bucket list?
Oh, 100%. That's, like, my always been, like, my North Star. Like, to climb Mount Everest without oxygen is, like, one of the hardest things you can practically do, especially, like, Mount Everest isn't, like, a super technical or hard mountain, really, but it's so big and there's so much volume of the mountain. But when you tie that with not doing it with oxygen, like, it's just, like, a whole nother beast. Like, more people been to space, more people have won Golden Globes than they have been to the top of Mount Everest without oxygen. Like, that's how hard it is. And it's just, like, you have to be insanely fit and insanely mentally fit to be able to do something like that. Like, some of these stories I hear of these dudes back in the 80s with none of this new equipment and shit, and just climbing on, like, pure grit, and just, like, being a second away from death every single second of like, some people take, like, 48 hours to climb it from Camp 4. Like, it's just ridiculous. They're up there overnight, like, literally on death's door, because there's, like, it's like, they reckon it's like sprinting with a pillow over your face, like, just breathing up there and walking. Like, that's how fucking hard it is.
Yeah,
So that's always been my North Star, and that's something I'll 100% do. Like, I might not be till I'm 40 or whatever, but, like, I just know I'll climb Mount Everest, like, at some point.
Because with Everest, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to go over, obviously get comfortable at base camp, get used to the altitude, but then it can be like a process of waiting for the right conditions.
Yeah, and you have
to
to
make the move.
acclimatise and stuff like that as well. So there's 4 camps on the way up. So there's base camp, and you go up to Camp 1, Camp 2, and then Camp 3. But most people skip Camp 2 usually. And then you go up to Camp 4, which is, like, at the start of the death zone.
Okay.
And it's just, like, you got to, like, go up to, like, maybe Camp 2 for 2 nights, then you come back down to base camp, rest, and then you just let your body acclimatise to the altitude.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a really long process. There's ways now that they do it where they'll just climb, like, littler, easier peaks, like, at 6,000 metres, because Everest is at over 8,848 metres. So you got to, like, acclimatise, like, up and down the mountain and do all these different things. And it's a long game. It's like some of them take, like, 3 months to climb it from start to finish. Like, yeah, like, not 3, like, it obviously doesn't take 3 months to get base camp to the top, but you just got to do all these things to prepare yourself, and got to stock all the camps and pick a good day, because it's getting really crowded now. You got to, like, pick a really good day to go, or you're gonna, like, get stuck behind all these lines and shit, because it's pretty narrow up the top. Like, it's only a one-way path that you can't like, really cross, or you'll fall, like, literally 3 kilometers down the Kangshung face next to you, or you fall into bloody China that side. Like, it's like, it's like the ultimate, like, test, I reckon, of, like, endurance and mental strength. So I'm hoping by doing all these things, it's just going to lead me up to that. And like I've got some pretty big goals I want to do running, but like that's like the big one. And I have a running goal that's tied in with Everest as well that I want to do one day. But Everest with no oxygen is like my North Star.
Can I ask, how much of you feels compelled to share this journey with other people? You know, obviously we're here talking about it on a pod, and you know, you've got the YouTube videos, which I highly suggest people go and watch, because that was really interesting to watch your Coast to Kosci recap, and done that with your 100 miler and your 100K as well.
Yeah.
But like, how much of you feels, because this is something I was chatting to a mate about this yesterday. On the journey of doing my 47 days straight of 10Ks at the moment, which just pales in comparison to what you're doing, but I'm sharing every day of that journey. And part of that is because, you know, essentially this is the sort of stuff that I do now.
Yeah.
However, part of me feels like post this challenge, I kind of want to go away from sharing as much and be a little bit more like just the pursuit for myself and enjoy it for myself, and like just enjoy the daily art of getting out and like running and moving my body and enjoying what that does for me mentally and physically, and not feeling like I'm obliged to share that with everyone.
Yeah.
So where do you sit on that?
Well, if you enjoy that, like, then 100% go for it. Like, you're spreading the message out there, and like you've probably inspired more people than what you even like think of. Like, even the haters will get like inspired by it. Like,
Yeah.
like everyone's watching, and
For
that's what's cool about it. Like, I still do worry about what people think too much, probably, because I do want to share this. Like, I'd love to have like someone follow me around and just film the shit I do all the time and like make like my life out of it. But I'm kind of battling with that now. Like, do I start to like go heavy into that side of stuff? Because I do enjoy like editing videos, and like I think everyone thinks their opinion matters, but I think my opinion matters, and I would want to get it out there. I probably just don't do that enough. But if you enjoy doing that, then 100% just go for it. Like, just do whatever you want to do. Like,
it's a good point, isn't it? There's a Jay Shetty quote I love. Heard him on a podcast, and he's probably one of the guys I watch and listen to the most, because I think what he's achieved is far more spiritual than what I'm trying to achieve. But the sort of direction he's had in his career path is definitely something I'd like to follow and do it in my own authentic way. But I heard him on a podcast, and they said, what's something you don't value that you used to value? And he said, being understood. And that clip has sort of weighed heavy on me for the last 6 months since I've seen it, just thinking about how so much of what we do feels as though there's this need to have others' approval, and coming to grips with like little things like, you know, being comfortable with, if I'm filming myself on a 42K run, there's a point where I'm probably going to look like shit, and it's okay if the world sees me at that state.
yeah.
And, you know, but that vanity metric is hard to tackle sometimes. And I think that's often people's barrier for sharing, is how they're going to look or how they're going to be perceived.
Yeah, 100%. Like, even with that video that I made, like, my best mate, Dill Arvella, he put it all together. But I was still, like, he would still, like, have to ask me if, like, it's all right before we done it. Because, like, I was, like, obviously caring about the way I looked, or if I looked too fucked in that video, or if I looked stupid in that video. Like, but I shouldn't care about that, because that's like part of the story, and I should have just like...
For sure.
I've got to try and learn to just relax and just like... There's no point trying to portray yourself on the internet. Like, if you're not that person, like, you're going to get found out. Like...
For sure.
You're always going to get found out. Like, so you might as well just try and be yourself. Like...
Bloody oath.
Yeah, you 100% got to get like... If someone sees you on the internet and they think you're like this person, and they meet you in real life and they're like, what the fuck? That dude's not like nothing like that.
So we've all had those experiences, right? Where we've met someone and we go, you're not who you make yourself out to be.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I do try and like just put myself out there like I am in real life. I think that's a pretty important thing to do. But I'm not perfect. I still do hide some shit, or like try and make myself look cooler than what I actually am sometimes, or like something I wouldn't say. But I just try and make myself look as real as possible.
I love that, brother.
Like on the internet and in the videos and stuff like that.
I love that. Talk to me about the prep, because that was one of the most probably impressive things for me, is watching your prep leading up to Coast to Kosci. And what I think some people may not appreciate is how much it takes, how much resilience it takes, how much mental fortitude it takes to get up, do the work required to be physically and mentally prepared, while still, you know, working a job, having a life outside of running.
Yeah, it was probably started to get a little bit too much there towards the end. Like, I was too obsessed with it, and I was missing out on opportunities with my family or friends or stuff like that because I was just so obsessed with just like getting up every day and just like grinding every single day. And yeah, it's like that's what it takes, but I also kind of have to have a bit of balance because it just like all you're doing is training, sleeping, and eating practically.
Yeah.
And it stuffs with your hormones and stuff, and started to get a bit much towards the end. But so that's why I'm trying to find that balance next time. But yeah, the prep was just like, I don't know, you have to have an insane prep if you're gonna do an insane race. So I was just like, every single day, wake up, go to work for like physical job, bending over all the time, like lifting boxes.
You're
like,
Sparky, yeah?
Nah, I lay floors at the moment. I got my
Okay.
trade in landscaping, but I'm laying floors with like all my best mates, which was like a blessing because although I was bending over and that's why I got like my knees got injured. But besides that, like it's just so good working with my mates. Like it doesn't even feel like work, and it's just like the biggest weight off my shoulders now. So that was a good thing about the prep. But yeah, you just like you have to run on every day, and like I'm trying to go to the gym 3 days a week as well. So I'm trying to put on like a bit of size and stay a bit bigger. But yeah, you just got to get up and just like when you got to get up and it's pissing down rain, you got a 50k run to do. You're just like, fuck yeah, let's get it done. Like it wasn't even like an issue for me. Like I was just like loving it so much. I'm just like, fuck yeah, let's go. Like,
because you were doing Saturday long runs.
Yeah, my coach was giving me Saturday long runs, and then I'd do like a little like maybe like towards the end it was like maybe like 16k on a Sunday or something like that. But it was just like kind of like fatigue myself heaps on a Saturday, and then on the Sunday I would just like run on tired legs and just like kind
Back
of
up
trying
with
to
moderate
mimic,
effort.
yeah, just trying to like mimic like race conditions kind of because you're going to be running on tired legs at one
For
point.
sure.
So yeah, and we weren't really doing too much like a little bit of speed work, but nothing like too crazy, and just like lots of hill reps and stuff like that.
So what was your, like how long was your training block leading into Coast To Kosci?
It was like obviously I was running all year. Like after the West Max Monster, that was in May. Like it was going to be a long time before I started training for Coast To Kosci because I didn't even know if I'd gotten in yet. And
Yeah, so we're talking May 22?
yeah, May 22. And then after that, I just was like, oh, I should do something fun. Like, so 4 weeks later, I'd done a little half marathon in Kiama. Like just along the trails. Yeah, it was like, I come second in that race as well, so I'm starting to get good at coming fucking second, which is annoying. But it was good to just like, because usually you're like 12-week block and you're leading up to a race and it's just like train and no fun.
Yeah.
Whereas now in that gap, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have fun and like actually start doing some races that I like actually enjoy. So I done, yeah, that little 21k. I was pretty happy with that. Like I hadn't really been doing any like crazy training in the lead up to that because I was recovering from West Max, which I was pretty beat up after that. And then I'm like, all right, I want to get my actual like a flat half marathon down. So I done a little race in Campbelltown, which was actually wasn't that little. It was pretty big, Campbelltown half. And then after that,
What did you run that in?
1:18:50, I think. Well, I wanted to go under 1:20, and then
That's so quick.
yeah. So I had like 8 weeks of like dedicated like speed work, which was like really fun. And my long run's probably like 1:30, so nothing like too crazy. It was just like all speed work and just into the lead up to that. So
But what's that, like 4:05s or something? Or quicker?
It's like 3:48s, I think it was.
Oh my god.
Or maybe 3:43s. I'm not sure.
Bro, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. It was
That's
good
like
to like
a bloody 1k effort for me.
yeah, well that's what like the aerobic base does. Like I barely done any sprints in the lead up to like that, and then like it's a little bit of dedicated like speed work. It just shows like how far I can go. Like after you do your 47 days of 10k, like your aerobic like capacity is going to be so big, and like if you just do a little bit of speed work, like you'll be amazed about what
I'll have
you
to do a little speed block and then try hit a 5k PB or
yeah,
something.
fuck it out. Go down to fucking North Gong Park run there.
Yeah,
It's pretty quick
exactly.
there. And then so yeah, I just had a little like had fun in between that, and then 12 weeks out, it's when we battened down the hatches and started to like go pretty ham with it. So I was just like started out like 80k a week, and then over that 12 weeks, my peak week ended up being about 120k a week with like 3k elevation in it through the whole week. So we're trying to like get a lot of elevation in. So I'm kind of I'm definitely on the lower side of mileage for most ultra runners. Like most of the people that are doing that race, like I've seen some people doing like 200-kilometer weeks, but there's no fucking way I could handle 200k a week. So not yet anyway. Like eventually I'll be able to handle that for sure, but my body's like, I haven't been running long enough and I'm probably a bit too heavy to be doing 200k a week. So you don't have to do 200k a week, but a lot of people, like the sweet spot for most people is like 160k a week. So if I could build my way up to that, I think that'd be pretty decent if I could do that like for a lot of weeks in a row, because it's just all about consistency. Like
for sure,
you can like. My biggest week was 120, but if I could have run 160k one of those weeks, but I would have been fucked. Like if you can't consistently just do that every single week, then there's no point even doing it. Like consistently good's a lot better than occasionally great. So especially with running, like I was just trying to bank up, or my coach was the one fucking telling me what to do, but like we were just trying to bank up as much as we could.
Yeah.
So yeah, my peak week was 120k, lowest week probably like 80k. So nothing like too crazy, but
it's still impressive though, isn't it? And it's funny for me because one thing that I took from your training block in the lead up that, you know, we spoke about a fair bit was your nutrition.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's a big thing for me.
Probably that's the thing that I reckon I've struggled with just even in like my Maras and my ultra is really, unless I'm running more than 30k, I'll just go out fasted I'll take some hydration, some sodium, go out fasted and not have anything. And I realised that the old idea of like, 2 weeks out from a mara I'll start to test some gels hasn't served me all that well.
Yeah, that's you're just asking for trouble doing that.
Bloody oath.
Like people do the like fat adaptation thing, like running fasted, but you need to have that in like throughout your whole life as well. Like if you're going to be keto on your long runs, you need to be keto throughout your whole week and like your whole life practically to get that fat adaptation. Yeah, because everyone like loves to go on about fat adaptation because like you're just burning fat instead of like carbohydrates that are in your muscles because you don't have any in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I just look at the best in the world and those guys aren't keto, so like I'm not going to be keto either.
For sure.
But you have like cystic fibrosis obviously doesn't like you. Did you say you had like diabetes from cystic fibrosis?
So for me the challenge is if I have too much carb then my blood sugar spikes and drops really low. So I found though once I start running I can have as much carb as I like because my body's absorbing it.
Yeah.
So it's not affecting my blood glucose level. But before I run, if I eat, it's got to be like well balanced between fat and carb. But then I found what worked well for me and somewhat worked well for me in Melbourne was just I went fasted that morning, had heavy carb dinner that night, so I had a bit of carb backloading. But then once I started running, I was getting in plenty of carb. But still, like I think I had 3.5 gels and 1 dinosaur lolly that a little kid on the side of the road gave me at about 30 Ks. And it got stuck to the roof of my mouth too, the little shit. I was like, he's stitched me up here.
Yeah, the natural confectionery ones, they stick pretty bad.
They stick pretty bad.
Did you do like a carb load leading into it, like we were talking about, or did you?
A little bit the day before. I still, one of the things I struggle with is like digesting and not getting too bloated.
Yeah, that's a hard thing, especially like if you do a proper carb load, for me, like I was trying to hit like 800 grams of carbs. I don't know if you don't know what like how much grams 800 grams of carbs in, that's a fucking lot of food in one day. And I do that 2 days out because you just really want to like load your muscles with like heaps of glycogen so you can just like they're like overloaded and like overflowing practically, and it's fucking hard, especially if you got to like worry about like balancing it with proteins and fats and stuff like that.
Do you feel heavy on the day of a race?
Oh, 100%. You feel so shit. Like going to bed the night before Coast To Kosci, I felt fucking so so bloated and just like you feel that heavy. But it's like most people will feel that if you're doing a carb load properly, you're probably gonna feel like that.
Yeah. So
yeah, I love like counting my macros and stuff and nutrition and shit like that. So like it wasn't really an issue, but I love that side of things.
So what would you say? So you got to a point where you were training on 100 grams of carbs an hour, but you weren't really having that in the event, were you?
Yeah, no. I knew I probably wouldn't be able to get 100 grams of carbs in unless I was just like smacking the gels. Yeah. But in training, I was just like, I was eating like rice and peanut butter, like cakes that I would make, or like massive bagels with like Nutella on it. Like I got myself to the point where I could eat like a whole bagel while I was running and not stop stride, like run like 5-minute Ks with like a bagel and eat it. Which is, I can do that at the start of races, but towards the end of like Coast To Kosci, I was like, like the thought of solid food just made me feel so nauseous, and
Yeah.
like I probably could have got it down without like throwing up, but I was just like, nah, like my knees were cooked at that point anyway, so I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get this finished and just on gels and tailwind, and I was paying for it like the couple of days after the race, like I was like paying for it like really badly.
Stomach doesn't love it, eh?
Yeah, no, I was just like I'm not gonna go into the details, but it was like leaking out of me. It was just so bad.
Yeah.
Like that shit is just so not good for you when you're like 37 hours into a race. Like you need to have solid food.
Solid food. Well, it's funny because even on my 50, I was on antibiotics, which is not obviously not ideal for your gut health. I was on antibiotics for 2 weeks before it, and my stomach hadn't been feeling great. And the morning of, I kind of thought I felt okay, like starting. And I was having a gel every 6K. That was the plan. And I was having some like full sugar Powerade as well.
Is it like every 45 minutes or so?
Yeah, about that. Yep.
You probably need a bit more than that.
Probably need a bit more, yeah. And I got to 15K, and I said to my mate, "Oh, my stomach does not feel good at all." Like, and when you're 15K into a 50, you're like, the last thing you want to think is like, oh, "I don't feel good."
And it's constantly in the back of your mind as well. You're like, "Fuck, I'm gonna have to shit at one point."
Bro, I got to 20Ks and I was like, I think I'm gonna shit myself or spew. Like, I'm not sure, but I just don't feel great. And then so like that's starting to have a negative impact on the way you're thinking about the next bunch of Ks. And we got to 30 and the plan was to go inland towards like Kirraville, Gwynville. And I said to my mates, I said, I honestly don't think I can go away from a toilet for the next 10Ks. Like, we've got to hug the coast.
Do loops around the toilet block.
Exactly. And thankfully my stomach held up, but I spewed in my mouth at 32 and accidentally swallowed it because I was just that
not
tired.
wasting any carbs.
Yeah, use the carbs. And then I was like, next thing I do, I've got to train on nutrition properly.
Yeah.
Because
it would
it's
have been
vital.
in the back of your mind as well, like having that constant feeling. It would have been something that you were just like worried about.
For sure.
It would have been taking your mind off the race, or the run that you were doing. So, yeah, if you just try and like, and it sucks because like I love like finishing a long run and just like binging on some like heaps of food.
Same.
Like even if it's just like a big salad. If I'm gonna have a salad, I'm gonna eat like fucking 5 people's worth of salad because I just love food so much. So when you're on a long run and you're like, oh, I'm eating all these calories that I don't get to eat after, but you just like, I had to get myself out of that mindset because you have to train your gut. It's like crucial if you're gonna have a good race, especially in a marathon. Like you need to like train it, like really like get it spot on.
To go back to the mental side of things, what has the journey of the last 4 or 5 years, and especially this last 2, really diving into some serious ultra running, what has it taught you about yourself?
Yeah, I was a pretty insecure kid back in the day, as I said before, but like the further I run and the more like people reach out to me and just tell me how amazing it is, like it's like boosted me up a bit. Like,
yeah.
And I just realized like I fucking literally can do whatever the fuck I want. Like any race in the world, I'm gonna finish it. Like I might like not have a good day, or like I might not have the time goal that I meet, but I'm 100% gonna finish unless my legs fucking snapped in half. Like I'm gonna finish. Like, and I've just realized that from all these races, like you can literally do whatever the fuck you want to do. Like if you have a like goal in your mind that you want to do, and the only thing stopping you is like your brain. Like that's the only thing stopping you. Like, yeah, your leg's gonna hurt, but no one's ever died from sore legs. Like you can literally just keep, like if you can't run, just fucking walk. If you can't walk, just fucking crawl. Like you can finish it. There's nothing that's gonna stop you.
And it's what you say there, your actions speak louder than your words, because you got to that point in the race where I believe it was 60 odd K to go and your legs were rooted, your knees were sore.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where you knew you were just going to have to move extremely slow to get to that finish line. And I think one thing I see, one thing that I think I love about people who are coming into the sport but aren't necessarily considered the professionals is there's almost this standard amongst some professionals that if it gets to a point where things slow down too much and they can't move at the pace that they'd hoped,
like what's the point?
they just DNF.
Yeah.
But I love that like your mindset was not, oh, okay, I'm going to miss the goal. It was, well, I might miss the goal. That was very lofty to begin with of sub 30 hours, but I'm going to make sure that I cross the finish line because I'm going to be proud of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, like when you realize that you've got 80k still to run, and your knees are like fucking starting to hurt like a lot, you're like, you see what you're made of. Like when I got to that point in the race, I had pictured getting to that point, just being like feeling so good and just like running into Jinder Mine, just like heap strong and being able to run the last 60k and then just like finishing like the way I envisioned to do it. But I got to like, there was like 65k left to go, and then Jinder Mine's like a major checkpoint that you get to, and I'd always picture running down that hill into the checkpoint just feeling like so good. When I got to the top of the hill, and I was just like, I had to walk down the hill like backwards for some of it because my knees were just fucking like so swollen and so painful that I don't even know what the fuck was wrong with them. Like I still don't even know what was wrong with them now, and like I just couldn't run. I couldn't take a step. It was like the fucking shittest feeling in the world. And I got to the checkpoint, and like I'd put so much time and effort into this. And I got to the checkpoint, and like I had my best mates there and mum and dad, and my mate was filming me, and he'd stopped filming, and like I didn't know why he stopped filming, and mum and dad had this look on their face because they'd never seen me like that, and they're like, after the race, they were like, we thought you were gonna drop out there. Like Dylan stopped recording because he thought you were gonna drop out, but like I've never DNF'd anything in my life. I don't know why the fuck they thought that. And I was like, I said to him, like, I can't run. It's either I drop out now, I think about this for the rest of my fucking life because I'm going to hate myself, or I just walk the next 65k and just get this finished and get it done.
For sure.
And I felt really bad because it's so much effort for these, like my crew to come down, mum and dad and the boys to come down, give up work, like stay up all night, like feed me, rub fucking sunscreen on me and my chest hair and shit, and like force feeding me food and just like practically babying me for the past 180k. For me to get there and say, oh, I've got to like, I'm going to drop out here. Or like, I even felt bad about saying, oh, I'm going to walk for the next 8-10 hours because like I can't run, and like, I'm sorry, but like I felt really bad about it.
Yeah.
But like they didn't give a fuck. Like they were down there anyway. But yeah, it was just the shittest feeling to like get there and just realize that I'm like not going to get the time that I wanted. But like finishing is non-negotiable. Like I'm 100% going to finish. Like, no matter what. So always have to fucking finish what you start.
For sure. When do you think you'll go back to Coast To Kosci?
Probably going to be this year now, because I was planning on getting into UTMB, but it didn't happen. So I'm going to try and plan the year around going back to Coast To Kosci now. So I'll just have to do 100k race, which I'll do if I do the Buffalo Stampede, or I'm going to be in Europe for most of the year. So I'm just going to probably pick a race over there to do. So
Yep.
yeah, as if you done Coast To Kosci last year, you just have to have done 100k before the next sign up. So yeah, it'll just be like, I'll just do 100k and I'll probably be back to Coast To Kosci.
I love it. I love it to tackle those demons again.
Yeah, I'll be like, if I'm gonna fucking nail that race before I die, so I'll be back every year until I do it.
Hopefully different colour of Cobra this year, eh?
Oh no, you get like a pin that you put on each side.
Okay, nice.
So there's some people
like
there
that.
that've got like 12 pins on their hats, just like their hats just covered in like Coast To
That's
Kosci
sick,
pins.
eh?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's sick.
But yeah, just like, yeah, you get one Akub when you finish, and then you get hat pins in it for the rest. So.
I dig that. Well, not only am I inspired by what you're doing, and I love watching it, I know so many people listening to and watching this will be inspired to either take their first steps in the world of running or the world of ultra or trails, whatever it may be, or even their first steps just in the physical pursuit of excellence, right?
Yeah.
But I guess before we finish this up, I'd be really interested, whilst you're going to inspire so many now with your actions, who's been the most inspirational character for you to look at, whether it be in this space or just in life itself, to really drive you or motivate you to pursue that best in you?
It's hard because I look up to so many people, so many sportsmen, so many like scientists and stuff like that. But like you can always like throw out your David Goggins and like my favorite MMA fighters and my favorite triathletes and stuff like that. But I kind of just take a collection and just take everyone's like excellence from every single person and just try and mold that into my own thing. Like
I like
there's
that.
no like single figure out there that I look up to and be like, oh, you're like yeah, it's just like, it's mountaineers, it's MMA fighters, it's like scientists, it's like just people that are excellent, like even like the way you speak on stage and stuff like that. I just take that from like every single thing and try and mold that into like the perfect human and like try and look up to that person. But it's like it's just like a collection from every single thing, and like yeah, like taking like the strength from my mum. Like she's been a cop for like 30 years. She's just the hardest bitch, and like my dad's just a hard dude as well, and just he's like also wants to be excellent at everything that he does as well. So it's just like I'm just trying to take from everyone, I guess. So there's not really like a single standalone person. It's just like I'm just trying to be the best I can and just take the best versions of everyone and just mold that into me as well. And I'm never gonna be perfect, obviously, but try and get to that point before I die. So
well, I love that,
just
brother.
try and be as best I can, I guess.
All those ingredients are topping you up and making you do incredible things. So
like the Powerpuff Girls.
Bloody oath, I love it. Bro, it's a blessing to be a mate of yours. It's a blessing to follow your journey.
Thanks.
It's a blessing now to have you on the show and have you as part of the fabric of a lot to talk about. So I'm going to make sure that all your social links, and I'll put the Coast To Kosci Visio in the show notes so people can click in, watch you, follow the journey and see all that's to come in 2023 and beyond. Zac O'Neil, thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Mate, thanks so much for having me. It's just fucking... I've been like watching you for so long, and just like I'm going to be on that podcast one day. So you get some like big names on here and stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to like live up to those expectations from those guys. But yeah, it's just, it's an honour. Thanks for having me.
Expectations are crushed already, brother. So thank you.
Sweet.